Welcome to Sounds of Resistance channel. Every second that passes continues to work against the Russian army. While the conditions of the war between Russia and Ukraine continue to get more and more difficult for the Russian army, the Ukrainian army is on the verge of creating a miracle. Thanks to the successful operations it has achieved with determined steps, Ukraine's army, which deserves the title of hero, has made very serious progress in order to save their country's independence. Recall the first days of the Ukrainian-Russian war. The smoke of the fire that fell on Kyiv painted the Ukrainian sky black for days. On February 24, when he launched the ground operation, Russian leader Vladimir Putin confidently stated that it would take 2 hours to besiege Kyiv. The war started like a nightmare for Ukraine that was wanted to end as soon as possible. In the early days of the occupation, everything seemed enormous for Putin and his army until they came across a reality they had forgotten. Primarily attaching importance to regional liberation, Ukraine realized that future victories would be possible by recapturing small settlements. Taking his steps accordingly, Zelensky and his victorious soldiers liberated important provinces such as Kyiv, Kharkiv, Kherson by capturing towns that seemed small for the invading troops. Now the heroic Ukrainian cavalry, with their belief in independence, is very close to the city of Liman, located in the western part of the Donbas region and serving as an important supply center. The Ukrainian heroes who crossed the Oskil and Siversky rivers and reached this region surrounded the Russian troops in such a triangle that any counterattack by the Russian army currently in that region is equivalent to preparing the death warrants of these Russian troops. Vladimir Putin, who gave too much importance to Luhansk, made another strategic mistake and left the Russian power in Donetsk defenseless. Taking advantage of this situation, the Ukrainian army carried out an operation that will go down in history in the city of Bakhmut, located near Donetsk. Ukraine's operation in Bakhmut, where the clearest images were obtained during the period of the Ukraine-Russia war, managed to impress those who saw it. In Bakhmut images, which immortalized the most obvious state of the uneasiness and fear of the Russian troops caught unprepared in Donetsk and its surroundings, how the Ukrainian Special Operations troops hit the Russian watchtower in this region with anti-tank guided missiles is recorded every second. The relentless operation, which started with the first missile fire of the Ukrainian Special Operations units, puts the Russian troops in a defensive position by stunning them. The Ukrainian fighters who previously surrounded Bakhmut and its environs quietly await the most vulnerable from the invading troops. The fact that Ukrainian soldiers take control of this region in advance provides a great advantage and allows the Ukrainian army to monitor the position and movements of the Russian troops in the watchtower moment by moment. The Russian army, trapped in the ring of fire established by the Ukrainian heroes, defends their place as the only solution. But the place where the watchtower is now surrounded by Ukrainian heroes, and the city of Bakhmut can be besieged by the Ukrainian army at any moment. All these developments forced the Russian administration to alarm, because the situations in this region are very serious, and if the Ukrainian heroes carry out the siege they have planned, a huge scandal is inevitable for the Russian government. In addition to the operations of the Ukrainian armed forces in and around Bakhmut, the center of another simultaneous operation is the town of Drobysheve, 17 kilometers from the city of Liman. Intense Ukrainian attacks continue in this region without slowing down. Here's how a Russian officer describes the Ukrainian counterattack, which caused a lot of panic for the Russian troops in the town of Drobysheve. The officer said, "We are defending Drobysheve. They are so close to our positions that we can see and hear them. Yesterday, we evacuated our troops from Novoselivka because we did not have the strength to hold them there. We regrouped and we are defending Drobysheve, but the situation is critical. Our opponents are helicopters, large cannons of ammunition, 120mm and 155mm, and UAVs. There are only 2 communication lines left for supply, and these 2 communication lines are not secure. The words expressed by the Russian officer are the statements that best describe the Ukrainian hero's Drobisheve operation. The Russian leader Vladimir Putin conveyed the detail that he could not see with his own eyes since the Russian officer was on the battlefield. Russian troops were surrounded by Ukrainian heroes. Although Kremlin statements are positive for Russia, concrete facts and evidence reveal the whole picture before our eyes. The unique success of the Ukrainian Special Operations Unit, which the Russian administration was desperate and Peskov tried to cover up, means much more to Russia than the loss of reputation. If the Russian government continues its war strategies inconsistently, it will learn to get up and leave most of the Ukrainian settlements like Bakhmut, Liman, and Drobisheve. The most important factors needed for the Ukrainian army are time and stability. The Ukrainian forces, an army that has proven itself on the world stage, planned its current situation in advance during the 2-month period of the war and are carrying out future-oriented liberation operations, sudden raids on critical areas. The lion soldiers of Zelensky, who are getting closer to victory with every step they take, are now the Ukrainian army in Donetsk, which has the title of the region that the Russians attach the most importance to. After a certain period of time, all settlements declared by Putin and considered strategic for the Russians are liberated by the Ukrainian army. Now let's get down to why. In fact, Putin laid the foundation of the building he had built, which was expected to collapse with a mobilization decree. The dictator leader Putin, who brought the Russian people under a regime of oppression and violence, continued to follow the wrong path with the philosophy that the more soldiers there are, the greater the probability of success. Russian volunteer citizens who were included in the army were actually on the territory of Ukraine, not voluntarily but out of necessity. Almost 90% of the 300,000 Russian citizens who went to fight in Ukraine with the mobilization decision actually wanted the war to stop. The bloodshed was enough for some. The loss of more than 60,000 soldiers of the Russian army so far was not only important for Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Yes, let's not forget that the Russian Ministry of Defense does not care about its soldiers who died. Otherwise, Shoigu wouldn't have used this shocking expression right after Putin's mobilization statements. Russian Defense Minister Shoigu stated that the number of volunteer personnel to be included in the Russian army is targeted as 1 million and that the recruitment of volunteers will continue until this target is reached. In fact, Shoigu was expressing, "We need 1 million more soldiers to die in Ukraine. Our losses are insufficient." Well, the question of why Vladimir Putin still sits in Russia's seat of power, despite the fact that almost the whole world realizes that the devil is in the details, is confusing. Actually, the answer is very simple. Habits don't change. Vladimir Putin rules his country with an oppressive dictation. The authoritarian Russian leader, Putin, who initially managed to intimidate his people, cuts off any voice that opposes him. Protests were held in Russia many times over. The reaction of the Russian leader was to detain those who participated in the protest demonstrations. But the truth lies in the dusty pages of history. The regime of extreme oppression and violence brings revolution. The situation that Russia is currently dragged into shows a similar situation. Even if the reason for this is the wrong assessment of the situation by the Russian authorities, it is obvious that it is a situation that emerged as a result of resistance of the Ukrainians. I wish the Ukrainians to regain their freedom and territorial integrity as soon as possible. About to meet again with developments. Don't forget to follow. Thanks for watching.